if I invited you to close your eyes for a moment, take a deep breath, and travel back to the exact instant when everything began? The book of Genesis, often seen merely as an ancient compendium of rules and genealogies, is actually the cradle of our existence and the beginning of the most fascinating narrative ever told. It is a story of infinite beauty, where the silence of the void was filled by the gentle, powerful voice of a creator. Today, we will walk unhurriedly through these ancient pages. I will tell you this story very calmly, detail by detail, so that you can rest your mind and soothe your heart. You don't need any prior knowledge, nor do you need to understand difficult words or complex theological concepts. Stay here with me, find a comfortable position, lay your head down, and allow the sound of these words and the peace of this ancient narrative to accompany you to the end of this journey, before we meet the faces and names that shaped the world. Let's understand the setting where all this grandeur comes to life. The very word Genesis carries a deep meaning. It literally means origin or beginning. This is the dawn of humanity, the opening of the curtains of existence, and everything unfolds in the warm, vast, and starry lands of the ancient Middle East. This account was made especially for you, who seek tranquility and want to understand in a simple and fluid way how the great stories we've heard since childhood, like the paradise of Adam and Eve or Noah's immense ark, are not isolated tales, but come together in a single, continuous tapestry. Genesis is an unbroken line of love, loss, promises, and infinite fresh starts. So, make yourself at home. Leave the worries of the day outside, and let's return together to the beginning of all things. In the beginning, there was only silence and the infinite, and God, with his gentle word, brought light into existence to dispel the darkness, separated the heavens and the earth, and filled the seas and fields with all sorts of marvelous creatures. And as the great masterpiece of all this wonderful creation, he formed the first human beings, Adam and Eve, placing them with immense care in a garden of absolute peace, Eden, so they could live in communion and tend to that perfect harmony. But amidst so much freedom and beauty, there was a single loving guideline. They were not to taste the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It happened that a subtle serpent, using gentle and deceitful words, planted doubt in Eve's heart. Drawn by the promise of wisdom, she ate the fruit and gave it to Adam, who also ate it. They chose, in that instant, to walk on their own and define their own paths, stepping away from the protection and the will of their Creator. Because of this, that initial harmony, light and crystalline, shattered into pieces. They had to leave the comfort and safety of the Garden of Eden, and the world outside proved to be a place where weariness, pain, thorns, and mortality became part of the routine. Humanity began its long, challenging, and often lonely journey outside of paradise. Right there, the years passed slowly, like dry leaves carried by the autumn breeze, and human families grew, multiplied, and spread across the immensity of the earth. But as humanity grew, the human heart drifted further and further from its original goodness. Violence, selfishness, and darkness took over people's thoughts, and the earth was filled with a deep, heavy sadness. The The corruption of everything pure reached such a point that the pain struck God's own heart, deeply saddening him. As he looked upon the work he had made with so much love, because of this, the waters of the heavens fell endlessly, and the springs of the deep earth burst open in a colossal flood, planned to wash and purify the world of all its wickedness. However, in the midst of this immense storm, God looked upon Noah, a man of pure heart who walked in peace with him, and instructed him to build a large and secure wooden ark. Inside it, Noah, his wife, his children, and pairs of all the animals found a welcoming and quiet refuge, while the storm cleansed the earth outside. After the waters receded and the ground dried, a new and serene morning dawned on the horizon. Noah's descendants populated the earth once again. The beautiful aspect of this new era was that everyone shared and spoke the exact same language, living together on the vast, fertile plains. But pride, very quietly, began to sprout again in the hearts of those people. Instead of looking upward through humility and spreading out to care for the whole planet as God had asked, they decided to build an imposing city and a colossal tower, the Tower of Babel. Their goal was not to honor God, but to exalt their own names and reach the heavens through their own strength and ambitions. Therefore, God, observing the arrogance that united them in such a harmful way, came down and confused their words. Unable to understand each other's voices, teamwork became impossible, and the great construction stopped echoing the sound of tools. They then spread gently to the four corners of the world, forming the many diverse nations, cultures, and languages that we know and admire today. Time continued its quiet course. Generations followed one another, and God, moved by an inexhaustible love, decided to weave a new path of salvation and hope. He called a simple but kind man of great faith, named Abram, promising that he would make of him a gigantic nation, and that, through his descendants, all the families of the entire earth would be blessed forever. But there was a massive obstacle in human eyes. Abram already felt the advanced weight of old age, and his beloved wife, Sarah, could not have children. The promise seemed like a beautiful illusion, impossible to achieve. The decades of waiting brought trials, hasty shortcuts, doubts, and surely many silent tears, shed in the quiet of their tents under the starry desert sky. Because of this, their lives became a constant journey of surrender, obedience, and deep trust in what they could not see. And, in God's perfect right time, absolutely miraculously, and against all expectations, the soft cry of a baby named Isaac broke the silence of that family. This birth brought a genuine and unforgettable laugh to Sarah, confirming that the Creator's plan is sovereign and never fails. Isaac's lineage continued in peace, and his son Jacob eventually fathered 12 sons, who would form the foundations of a nation. Life followed its familiar rhythm in the fields, and Jacob deeply and openly loved one of his sons, young Joseph, gifting him a beautiful, long tunic of many colors, which made him stand out among the rest. But bitter jealousy and silent envy slowly poisoned the hearts of his older brothers. In a moment of deep darkness and betrayal, far from their father's eyes, they attacked Joseph and sold him as a slave to merchants heading for Egypt, making old, fragile Jacob believe that his beloved boy had been devoured by a wild beast and was gone forever. In Egypt, young Joseph faced separation, forced labor, the injustice of being accused of something he didn't do, and the lonely cold of an underground prison. Because of this, God, who never abandoned Joseph in the darkness, used the silence of suffering to forge his character, granting him unique wisdom and the divine gift of interpreting complex dreams. When a global crisis and a great famine threatened to devastate the world, Joseph was brought before the powerful Pharaoh, interpreted his nightmares, and, guided by God, established a plan that saved nations, becoming the governor of all of Egypt. Years later, when the same brothers who betrayed him came to him, desperate for food, Joseph did not return their hatred. In a moment of profound healing, he revealed who he was and embraced them with abundant tears of forgiveness, providing shelter for his entire family and keeping alive the divine promise made to his ancestors. And so, serenely and grandly, the book of Genesis comes to a close, not with a perfect fairy tale ending, but with an entire family that found refuge, provision, and restoring forgiveness in the lands of Egypt, warmed and protected by the providence of a God who never sleeps and never abandons his own. The silent pages of Genesis show us real, flawed people, people who lie, who are afraid, who make mistakes and doubt, exactly like you and me on our hardest days. But these same pages reveal, above all, a divine love that does not give up on us, a love capable of stitching together every human mistake and transforming chaos into a much greater purpose, setting the stage for redemption. So today, as you lay your head down, as you close your eyes and listen to the sound of your own breathing, remember that your story is also part of something grand. Even when the setting seems confusing, and when we don't understand the paths we are walking, there is a gentle, invisible, and loving hand guiding the course of your life, just as it guided Adam, Noah, Abraham, and Joseph. Rest your mind, breathe in peace. And if this ancient story brought calm and comfort to your heart tonight, leave a like and subscribe to the channel so we can continue together on future journeys through the scriptures. May you have a deeply peaceful night, free from anxiety, and a very, very blessed sleep. Good night.